Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Minute Channel. And yes, we are recording this video after doing a live stream.
Yeah, we're kind of idiots, but hey, what are you gonna do?
Anyway,
we're lovable idiots.
So if you guys want to catch that live stream, you guys can see the link right there. But today we are gonna be doing Should You Play Persona 4? And the reason why I have my friend right here is because I introduced him to Persona 4. That was his first Persona game, and we just went out of focus so much.
Your camera is trying really hard. Stop moving.
Okay. Anyway, it never happens like that. It's because
stop.
Okay.
Anyway, it's because I'm here, isn't it?
So it's probably why. Anyway, so Persona 4. What is Persona 4 about?
Persona 4 is about you as the main character who, funnily enough, his official name is Yu Narukami. It's spelled Y-U in English. Yu Narukami.
It's you.
Oh, it's super subtle. Anyway, goes to a new town for a year for whatever reason. His parents are working overseas or whatever. You go stay with your detective uncle, and all of a sudden, really weird shit starts happening as you arrive. 2 people die, no one seems to know how, and then your persona ability is unlocked, and you must solve the mystery of who is murdering people for the next year. And if you fail to do so, game over!
So this game, if you play Persona 5, which most of my viewers have, it's
very different.
Beginning is similar in a sense, but it's different the way that it plays out. The rough, so to speak, you move to a new town and unlock the Persona powers. Happens in all the Persona games.
The impetus for each one is different.
But it's different. This game focuses on the mystery of what's going on.
It's a murder mystery. That's literally
it's a murder
what it
mystery.
is.
Yeah, it's basically Scooby-Doo Persona.
It is.
It's in the meme about it. This was a lot of people's first Persona game, I think.
Mine. And specifically the one that I played was Persona 4 Golden.
Which is strongly recommended. I believe that this is the stronger version of the game.
I think the second version of every Persona game so far has been the better version to play, hasn't
Except for FES, Persona FES. They added this second part of the story, which are like 15 hours of the game. I just kind of fucks up a lot of the stuff that they did on the first one, so strongly don't recommend that. But back to Persona 4 Golden. Overall, the game does a lot of things that improved on the original game. Now, if you have the PlayStation 2 version, definitely go for it. You can
still get the full story. You can still enjoy the characters and everything that Persona 4 Golden has. It's just that Persona 4 Golden has 1, an extra character, and 2. Does the secret dungeon come into play in Persona 4? It
does. It has an extra dungeon, and the extra dungeon unlocks an additional ending, which is a complete ending. You actually get to see characters years later and everything.
Years, or is it a year later?
A year later, yeah. So to speak, a year later. And you can see like a character progression and everything. And I really admire how they're able to do that over and again. So definitely, if you can get the Persona 4 Golden, that's good. So
be warned that it is on the PlayStation Vita. So good luck finding working copies of those.
Yeah. Okay. You can get the PlayStation TV, which is a small beta for the TV. Probably harder to find at a Vita, I guess. I don't know.
I think the Vita is actually harder to find at this point.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. But anyway, so really good game. I believe is a pretty solid game. One of the biggest things that will throw you off from this game to Persona 5 is the dungeon style of the game.
Oh yeah, the dungeon style for 4 is very much like Mementos is supposed to be in 5, where every time you run into it, save for a certain few floors, the floor layout is random, and you have to find the stairs to move on to the next level. But it's also populated with roughly the same shadows and all that kind of stuff. But in this particular one, I'm right in assuming, in Persona 4, you don't actually fight the personas that you take in like you do in 5.
Yeah, which is a completely different style of gameplay. In that sense, instead of capturing the persona or the shadows, rather, you fight shadows and you capture personas after winning against the shadows. It's like a completely different system of how you earn the shadows.
But it's the one thing I know this is actually referencing back to our Persona 4 versus 5 video, but I do think that the acquiring of personas is better done in 4, just because there is that card game, there is the impetus of like, oh, I get extra things if I do things a certain way rather than just bum rushing it like you can in
It's
5.
like a risk versus reward kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which at the same time, I feel like it works for this game really well because there is a big emphasis on the tarot cards on Persona 4 particularly. They use tarot cards to awaken their personas. Every time that they use their personas, they're crushing that card to summon that persona.
Unlike Persona 5, which they're literally just covering their masks.
Yeah,
like they're not ripping them off like they do in the cutscene when they summon them for the first time. No, they literally just cover. They don't rip them off. Like, I paid really close attention. They do not rip them off. Whereas like in Persona 3, they use that gun or whatever.
Yeah, it's an evoker.
Get the evoker to get the thing out of their head.
Which is a completely different system. And I do have a video planned for that, which was gonna explain all this. But for now, Persona 4, the gameplay is slightly different as well in other aspects. I think it's not as fluid as in Persona 5.
But you have more control than you do in Persona 3.
That is correct. It definitely has a lot of improvement. The story moves forward in a more consistent pace, I believe. There's no lot of surprises or things like that. But the mystery is kept a little bit longer, I think.
They do hold their cards a lot closer to the chest in 4 than they do in 5. Because like there's a lot of obvious hints all throughout the game, but you don't know they're obvious hints until the twist smacks you in the face with its big flopping wiener.
Yeah.
Like it really is like once the twist does hit, you're like, why didn't I see it sooner? And whereas Persona 5, you kind of know from the get-go.
Yeah, because they tell you in introduction somebody betrayed you. In this one, you kind of have to figure things out and everything just smoothly. One thing that I really like about Persona 4 is the tone that they go throughout the entire series.
Oh yeah, the tone is
really,
so much more consistent.
It's really interesting. So the first part of the game, I'll say about 65% of the game, it's
which is roughly about 60 some odd hours, by the way.
It's really bright, really colorful, really friendly. Things are going on and they're shady and there's stuff. People are getting scared. You know, they have
but for the most part, you're just dumb teenagers.
Yeah, you're just a teenager. Being a teenager, you're hanging out with your friends. You sneak out at night the first time to see your friends or whatever. So you have like this dynamic of.
Or you be a good boy like me and tell your uncles like, hey, I've got a nighttime job. I'm not sneaking out
at a bar.
Actually, no, the first one that I had access to was the hospital job.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's
the hospital job. That nurse was hot. Yeah, not as hard as the doctor from Persona 4.
Oh God, no.
Persona 5, but still.
Please she was... step on me, Ty.
Anyway,
don't kink shame me.
Going back to that, there's a certain amount of freedom that you feel in this game. Oddly enough, reference to Persona 5. It's just there's a sense of just being a teen and
you actually do feel like a teenager that is thrown into this, like,
and you really feel like you're in the. I think this setting fits so well for Persona 4 because the map is super small, right? But in story sense, it makes sense because Inaba, the town where they live in, is extremely small. Everybody knows each other, you know. So it's like this classic story of everybody hanging out in the one place for hangout, which is oddly Walmart.
It's effectively this world's Walmart, but yes.
And the story is just so well paced out with the tone. Now, when as he said,
when the shit does finally
hit the fan, the tone changes, and it changes fast.
And it does not relent.
Yeah, from then on, it gets darker and darker. And there are some things that I really do. A lot of people will give shit to this game because it's a little bit more poppy, more kid-friendly, I will say, in a sense.
Not really.
But not really. There's already mature teams that they'll deal with it. And in this game particularly, I feel like they deal with a lot of things, which is kind of one of the things that resonated with me when I was a teen. Well,
I think-
at the time, being the thing about the true self, which is the theme about it, finding your true self, who you really are, and everything like that, which is a theme that goes throughout the entirety of the game.
Well, here's the thing, like the biggest difference that I see between 4 and 5, particularly when it comes to characters, is that the Persona 5 protagonists are all accepting their roles as rebels, as people who don't go with the flow, as people who reject everything that people try to label them with. And don't get me wrong, that's great. But at the same time, they're not finding their place in the world. They're finding a place, but not their place. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Whereas
Persona
Persona 4,
4
like particularly kanji, like this
everybody
one
in general. For example, if you think
the
about
most
it,
obvious one being kanji, where everyone just assumes that he's this rough and tumble guy, or that when things start coming out that he might be gay, or any number of different things about this character. And then once he does finally accept every part of himself, you actually do see him grow and be something a little bit different. Be not the rough and tumble guy or the gay guy or whatever it is that people want to label him as, but he does eventually find his role that he was meant to be in. Whereas like the same character in 5, which was Ryuji?
I don't know if they will label him the same. But
not
similar.
the same, but a similar idea, where like people have labeled him a traitor and a horrible person and the rough and tumble
gangster
guy,
or whatever.
And
type,
he kind of just accepts that.
Yeah, and
Like,
he does act
he
like
lets
that.
them pigeonhole him into this particular role, and then he just accepts it, and then he moves on.
No, that's not to say that there's no character development for Ryuji, which there is a lot of character development, but Persona 4 focuses on every single character and interaction with the characters, just kind of finding who they are. And you can see that transition throughout the entirety of the story. Everybody kind of earns their place and
as it were.
Whatever they feel that they fit in and everything. And I feel like that's what much better kind of way to...
Where I think 5 is more of this is what I ideally want to be. Like, I want to be this kind of rebel. I want to not be this type of person that people have pigeonholed me into, but they still accept the fact that they've been pigeonholed. Like, it's definitely a different type of accepting who you are. I do still think that Persona 4 did that a little bit better.
I think it's just because the team, it wasn't the point of Persona 5. Persona 4, that was the point. The point was
finding
through self and everything.
And
so.
literally for the main character, that's who you were. Like, that's what you were trying to do. You came in as a blank slate and you were trying to find out who you were. That was it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people. I mean, there's everybody that you meet. For example, Teddy, even one of the most annoying characters that you meet in a story, having him develop over time, and even if he wasn't particularly interesting or anything like that, there is a lot of things like who am I, where am I coming from, that kind of stuff that even Teddy can be a relatable character, I think.
And in particular, Persona 4 actually deals with something that, like, I know I dealt with and I'm still dealing with now as a 26-year-old man. I still have no idea who the hell I am. If I could have some mystical awakening that I knew exactly who I was, and then by developing my relationship with this guy, I could eventually find my real self, and accept, like, that would be so much easier than trying to figure out who I am just naturally. Because, like, Persona 4 really does nail that home. It's like, you are figuring out who you are. You are figuring out who all these people are. And the fact that this is all being encompassed by a murder mystery does not change the fact that you are finding out who you are.
And all of them are kids. They're all teenagers growing up in this world, getting to know each other, growing in everything. And that social interaction with each other also is so really well paced in the story. I feel like you get to know them in a really good sense. I really feel like they were really done. Speaking of true self, the music in the game is pretty good. I really like.
I still like Persona 5's music better.
It is really good. Yeah. There's a spice to Persona 5 that is not here. I feel like they went for a more poppy.
Well, at the time,
music.
that was also the more popular music. Whereas with Persona 5, because they were rebels, they chose a musical style that wasn't necessarily as popular, but fit more the aesthetic of the fantasy themes.
Yeah.
So, whereas 4 was focusing on finding yourself in this world that you are in. 5 was developing yourself into who you want to be. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I still don't think that Persona 5 did it. Well, I know I've said that like 4 or 5 different times, but I do like the music, I do like the style, but I still think Persona 4 did the character development better.
So, why should you play Persona 4? Because obviously that's the title of the video.
Characters and story.
Exactly. The story is pretty interesting. It's a murder mystery, but it's not a super complicated one, so don't go in thinking that
every little thing is gonna change who it is. No,
it's not. And as long as you go with that mentality,
once the twist actually does come, like it's one of those. It just hit me in the face with a big floppy wiener. How did I not see it coming?
So it's not entirely like kind of like the biggest thing. I think the story is well elaborated. The characters, I feel like that's a huge plus for me. They have a pretty good cast.
Probably the one thing that Persona 4 does a little bit more poorly is the side characters.
Yeah. The social links that are not part of the cast.
They're not as well done.
Yeah.
Like, they have a full and complete story. They do come to terms with whatever issue that they're having, but overall, I think Persona 5 did the side characters a lot better because you actually do see them grow, you see them change. Their life does, in fact, change generally for the better when you interview
there are
them,
some that are pretty well done as well. There are some that are pretty in Persona 4, but I feel like in Persona 5, most of them were pretty memorable.
Yeah. I think probably the one that there are 2 in terms of Persona 4 that really do it very well. And they're actually both jobs you can get pretty early on in the game, which is the daycare lady and the night nurse at the hospital.
I think one that I really liked the way that they elaborated on was the first girl that died.
Her brother?
She has a brother,
yes.
And you get to know the brother's a total asshole at the beginning. So
here's the
it's
thing.
really hard to kind of get into with him because he brushes you off.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Yeah.
In all of my playthroughs, I've only ever gotten to rank 1 with him.
Wow. Okay. You get to know this kid and you really feel for him. You get to know him and everything. So I really encourage you to go through that route. I think it's a pretty good route. But anyway, I do think that the story is well done. The characters, the main characters within your circle are really interesting.
In stories and growth is so much better done.
The gameplay is good. Now, we haven't talked more about the actual dungeoning of the Persona side of going to the dungeons and fighting and everything. It's a Persona game and it plays like Persona 3 in a sense, other than having more control on the characters. As we mentioned earlier, with going to the different dungeons, they are randomly generated. So
I think
it's a mixed bag.
I do believe that every dungeon has at least 2 to 3 floors that do remain stagnant. So regardless of how many times you run those dungeons, you will always see those 2 or 3 floors, and they will always be in the same floor placement whenever you reach them. But that the randomizing of all the other floors does break up the monotony.
However, one thing that I do want to point out, in every single dungeon that you go to, every single dungeon has a specific theme to them based on a character, because it's based on the reflection of their shadow.
Yes. The very first dungeon is a castle, and everything in it is themed after a castle. Now, that's not always themed properly.
Shadow-wise, it's not really themed properly.
But the shadows, at least for the first dungeon, are all themed very well. There's monks, knights. There's obviously like the standard shadows that appear in every dungeon, like the weird, like lollipop-licking dudes that like the very first shadow you ever fight.
Yeah, and the crosses or whatever.
Yeah, but the crosses actually fit as well too.
Right. Anyway, so aesthetically wise, I think that the dungeons were done pretty well for the time.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's one thing that I enjoyed as well, even though there's a certain monotony to each dungeon.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the randomized thing, doesn't help it quite a bit sometimes.
I will say that at least for me, what I do when it comes to playing these games, whenever I would go back into the TV world, because I don't remember what it was officially called other than TV World.
What is my channel called?
The Midnight. I'm an idiot. Anyway, what I would do would literally be just whenever I go back into the Midnight Channel to run the new dungeon, I would go back to all the old dungeons that I'd already beaten, run those again so that I get more money, more experience, maybe more personas to fuse, that kind of thing. And then once I've gone through all those, I would save and then run the new dungeon.
Now,
generally speaking, I would do pretty well. And that was just one run through each of the previous dungeons.
Yeah,
so,
and sometimes you will unlock new bosses over time.
Oh no! Once you beat a dungeon, a new boss is unlocked for that dungeon.
Yeah, and then
but
you
those
have to go
bosses
back
are actually pretty difficult.
Yeah,
like they're more difficult than the actual.
So it's
dungeon
more
boss.
challenge. You can get to grind a little more and so on. Now, one criticism that I actually haven't talked about ever about Persona 4 that I have, and I just thought about it just now, is how bad the quest on Persona 4 are.
Oh, you're talking about like
The
you
side
go into
quest.
a dungeon, fetch a thing, and it's a random drop.
Yeah, it's a random drop with like a 10% chance in a particular shadow that only appears in a particular floor in this particular dungeon.
But then if you do it like I do it, you end up like with like 40 of them. And
Exactly.
Like, what do I do?
But then you don't remember which person was the one for the particular quest. That's what.
Then you just spend one day, go to everybody, but they're not always there.
Yeah, they're not always there because that's one thing that I liked
so frustrating about that.
I liked it, but at the same time it's frustrating. The dynamic is certain people will only show up in certain days of
Like
the week.
Adachi, that motherfucker is super hard to pin down. Or the old lady that's only at the river on the weekends when it's not raining. Guess what? It's raining every other damn weekend.
There's a lot of things that play out in the game, like the weather, like the days. In this particular game, I think you need to pay more attention on the days on the calendar than in Persona 5. Persona 5, I think it lost kind of the charm.
Oh
of
yeah,
the
because it doesn't
thing.
matter. Like it could be rain, sleet, snow, or shine. You can go out and hang out with anybody if they want to hang out there.
However, in Persona 4 and in Persona 3, the days matter a whole lot because you have club activities.
If you want to run a perfect run, you have to meticulously plan out every single day. Persona 5, not really.
There's only activities that you can do on the rain. Then if you do it on the rain, that's it. That's the only activity you can do.
Like
and this is simple things like going into the vending machine and getting a, the machine in the
what did that ever do? I never could it would always get stuck for me.
Yeah, when it's raining, you go there.
Even when it's raining, it would get stuck.
The lady, if the lady will come out, but you have to develop kind of her, work in her place or whatever. She will come out, give you whatever, and sometimes it's like special keys or just items that protects your health and stuff like that, OSP or something like that. So it's pretty cool. Anyway,
is there like a secret item you get for actually getting the thing fixed or whatever?
It never gets fixed. It only works on rain. That's kind of like the mystery thing. And rain and fog play an important part of the story. So it's a mechanic in the game, but it's part of the story that kind of...
Whereas like with Persona 5, like the only thing that really matters is if it's a flu season or something like that. Because if it's flu season, then more often than not, the shadows that you fight will start off with a status effect. And it's the best time to go and fight the Reaper because he'll probably go down like a bitch. Whereas in Persona 4, it doesn't matter what kind of day it is. You fight the Reaper, you're gonna have the fight of your life.
That's true. All right.
I still have never seen him in that game.
Really?
I don't stay on floors long enough,
you have to stay on a floor for a particular amount of time, and I hear chains or something like that, and then you're gonna have to stay a little bit longer until he shows up. Sometimes he will show random lies on a chest.
I take it back. I did see him once. And I was dumb enough. This was like one of my first playthroughs. Someone said, "I feel a very evil presence in that chest." I'm like, it's probably just some
shadow, whatever. Yeah.
I open it. It's the Reaper. I die first turn.
Oh god, yeah.
No, not the party. Yunoru Kami dies first turn. Game over. Because that's what happens. Main character dies. Game over. You don't get a chance to revive him.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I will say before we finish this video. I do believe that Persona 4 is slightly harder than Persona 5.
And Persona 3 is harder than Persona 4.
Yeah, and
Persona
it is.
2 is harder than Persona 3, so on and so forth.
So it is not super hard. I can easily confidently tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Persona 4 is not a hard game.
I'm terrible at games. Like I said during our live stream that we just finished recording, not to date this video or whatever, but I never made it past Disc 2 on Final Fantasy 7. It took me almost 6 years to beat Final Fantasy 10. It took me a year and a half to beat Psychonauts. Like, I'm not good at games. And my first outing with Persona 4, I beat it. Now, granted, it was 99 hours after I started, but I still beat it.
So it's I feel like Persona 4 is a really good introduction to the series. It's a good way to get into games like Shin Megami Tensei, Persona 5, Persona
and just
3, and
Atlas
so
games
on.
in general.
Yeah.
They don't just make these kinds of games. This has basically been my impetus. Like, whenever I see an Atlas game, if I have the time and the money to really look at it, I will take a look at it and say, hey, this looks awesome. I'm going to pick this up and play it. And generally, when it's an Atlas game, 9 times out of 10, it's a pretty good game. So...
Yeah. Anyway, so to answer the big question, should we play Persona 4? Obviously, after discussing this for 25 minutes, yes, I do believe that is a good game to play. Is it the easiest game to get into? I don't know.
I don't think so. I will say that my impetus for playing games is good characters and good story. And Persona 4 had that in spades, at least at the time, because Persona 5 was nowhere even close to being out. And most of the other RPGs that I was playing at the time, I'd gotten through most of. I'd seen the story, at least the beginning of the story, multiple times. But eventually it just ended up being like, that was a really good game for me to get into. Plus, it was a long form game, so I was able to get my money's worth out of it. You know, the $300 and some odd I spent on my Vita, the charger cables, and the game.
And I think that's one of the biggest entry barriers for this particular title.
Now, we're not going to endorse it, but there's a option for all these games as well. Please support the official release if you do that. Yes, I just said doo-doo, but shut up about that. Please, like, Atlas is a wonderful company. We love just about every game
they
we play.
definitely need all the money they can get to get better games out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, particularly with Persona 5R coming out soon, like, we want more. And Atlas is a fantastic company to make long-form RPGs, and I want more of that. And those are just my style games. It's long-form RPGs with good characters and story.
All right, guys.
So, yes. Play it,
just
please. Definitely
play it. My recommendations, if you're going blind, so to speak, if you watch 25 minutes of this video here, give it a chance. The first couple hours, I think it starts a little bit slow on the slower side.
Yeah, because there's like I think a good 5 hours where you're not really doing anything. You're just
it's just stories, world building, and that kind of stuff. So I know that it can be a little bit hard to just sit through all this stuff.
It's not the 50-hour tutorial of 5.
But once you get past that, you can definitely
you can sink your teeth into it. And how I ended up playing it was like, it would be 12 o'clock at night. I had to go to school, or not school, but because I wasn't in school at that particular time, but work. I would have pretty early in the morning. I'd be like, just one more day, just one more day, just one more day. All of a sudden, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, fuck.
That is, it's so easy to get caught up with the calendar because you're just playing day by day.
Yeah, and
you experience it every day.
You do 3 things and you're done for the day, and you do 3 more things and you're done with another day, and it doesn't feel like you're doing a lot, but you are, and it's a fun thing to get into, that's for sure.
Alright, guys, but thank you so much for watching this video here, and thank you so much for Bloody Simon for being here. Again, if you guys want to catch up any of our live streams, I'll leave a link here. We did a full 2-hour discussion video between Persona 4 and 5, so if you want to check that out, that'll be cool. But anyway, thanks so much for watching this, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.